Hi, my name is CJ and this is my RC channel. And we move on to the B section with bag B. And this is going to be very much like the front axle, except easier. Because our portals are not in separate little boxes. We don't have U-joints on our axles because there's no steering. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty much the same drill. So, having done this once already, it's extra easy. That's something to watch out for. Make sure that nothing is inside the outdrive, or it's not an outdrive, it's like a locker basically. 4, 5, and 6. And our Loctite is going to come in handy for this again. Gear faces inward. The machining is just fantastic on stuff. I mean, you can tell when you can take one of these little screws, put on your Loctite, and then I'm just spinning the drive between my fingers like that, and it just goes right on in. That is nicely machined parts. See that? Just spins that screw right in. Remember, star pattern. Careful with this gear. The teeth are very sharp. It is definitely will chew your fingers up if you're not careful. Okay. Now here are these two weird unsealed bearings. One of the reasons I'm doing this extra step here is that in the event that water does get into the pumpkin, it would damage these gears very quickly. Or excuse me, it would damage these two bearings very quickly if they are not lubricated. And even if there is a little bit of grease inside there that I'm unable to see, it does not look like they are greased, but there may be something going on in there. In any event, having this extra grease on here is just going to help seal that. These gears are just phenomenal. I mean, they are so sharp. It's I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean the edges. It's almost like blades, not teeth. which just speaks to precision. So let's make sure that we identify that one larger bearing, and that's this one, the one standalone. Okay, let's make sure we're facing the correct direction. Okay. So that's how they want that. And again, the drive comes out the top. There we go. Anytime you're assembling stuff like this, anything with gears, when you snap something together, before you bolt stuff down, give it a turn. Make sure that something isn't binding up, that, you know, otherwise you're just going to have to unscrew it again anyway. So better to save yourself that, that step. And check it first. Interesting thing that you may or may not notice, aside from the fact that the case here has a little bit of an edge, that, you know, a lip that drops inside, kind of giving you a little more of a seal versus just two flat surfaces. The bolt holes have like an outer tube that drops down to like a post coming up out of the axle housing, and one drops into the other. So it kind of isolates this hole away from, in other words, water can't flow from here directly into the pumpkin. So at least not easily. So once this is tightened down, you've got a good seal going. It may not even really require any kind of grease gasketing to keep water out, because that was always one of the failure points for water coming in, is the holes, you know, because water would come in around the bolt, or if the bolt's loose, and it would go right in. But these holes are isolated because they're a tube inside a barrel, or a barrel inside a tube. And that's one of the reasons it's kind of hard to snap that case down, because you got to have all those features meet together and seat. Again, some really good engineering going on there. So I wouldn't crank down on these too much because of that. You don't want to damage it or make the plastic swell because you're compressing it. Just snug them down. Okay. Okay, that may not have been necessary. Okay, I put a bearing in here, and they do fit in just fine, but they may not actually go in there. So I need to get them out. It's easy enough. I'm kind of surprised that you would think there would be one there. I mean, the axle shaft gives you room for it. We got one on that side. I don't see why we wouldn't have one there. Okay. We have one on either side of the outdrive, so the big one down there, and we're going to have one in here, like that. So this drive has two bearings, one on either side. And the axle, of course, you know, has one in there, and it's got one out here, but it looks like there should be one here too. And they only show 3 bearings per side. So, you know, 1, 2, and 3. But a bearing fits there. I'm going to see if I've got a bearing that size, because there's no reason that a bearing wouldn't fit in there, and it's machined to fit, or molded to fit. So let me see if I have a 15 by 11. I'm going to pause up for a moment. Okay, and I do happen to have a pair of 15 by 11s. So I'm going to put one in, and I'm going to test to make sure everything clearances properly. But if that fits, that might be something you guys want to do for yours, because that's just going to make that rear drivetrain more reliable. That there's not going to be any flex there, you know, that one of the gears isn't going to lock up or something like that. Let me just kind of go over this with you to make sure you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, in the same way that we've got 2 bearings on either side of this shaft here to keep it stable, I'm setting up a 3rd bearing on the drive shaft. We have a bearing in here, but that's really for this center locker, okay? And then we've got a bearing all the way out here at this end, and then we've got our gear. Now the gear is kept in alignment. If you were to somehow apply enough torque to actually get this axle shaft to bend even a little bit inside this tube, you could have a problem. Now it looks like, I mean, like I said, that bearing fits. Oh, I wanted to put grease on there. Just if this works, it's going to stay in there, so I might as well do everything that I need to do so I don't have to disassemble unless I have to. The only thing that would keep me from keeping this in place would be if this, for some reason, binds. Like the bearing, you know, doesn't fit. But it fits in place. That part of the housing is definitely machined so as to take a bearing. You saw me slide them right on in. So, okay. Okay, so that is the problem. The bearing does not fully fit. It doesn't let the gear go down far enough. So just confirming, yeah, we can't close it up. So we can't do that bearing. That's too bad. I was really hoping for that. But let's just pop that bearing out. And I'll set those aside. Too bad. Because that would have also helped keep the axle watertight. I mean, I haven't heard any complaints online about this thing being a problem, so that's good. Everything moves. So I'll just dump these out. We're going to be using them all right now. That is just really odd that they have that machined to take a bearing, and if there was such a thing as a 15 by 11 by 2, a bearing would fit in there, it looks like, but I don't think that there is such a creature. 2 millimeters isn't enough for wide enough for ball bearings in a sealed housing. The curse of having worked as an engineer, you're always thinking of ways to make things better. You're always questioning other people's stuff. Excellent. That's okay. I imagine once you are familiar with this, which doesn't seem to take any time at all, it's going together really quickly now that I'm onto the second axle and the fourth portal. With a powered screwdriver, taking this thing apart, cleaning it, and putting it back together should be a snap. I mean, literally maybe an hour, hour and a half. And that's, you know, including the time to take the axles off, take the wheels off, everything else that's involved in getting to them. So there really shouldn't be any reason to not make regular maintenance a thing. Besides, then you end up with a really nice looking crawler all the time, you know, because, you know, all these little areas get mud on them and the mud gets dried, and I don't know where you guys are in the world, but I'm in the state of Virginia in the United States, and we have what is called Virginia clay. We have almost no topsoil, and the dirt down here almost requires welding equipment to remove. When I was a kid, we mini biked and then dirt biked as we got older, and Virginia clay is impossible to get out of your clothes, and it literally, you know, has to be power washed off, if not jackhammered off of your bike. So you know, taking this little sucker apart and, you know, soaking all the parts in like some simple green and hitting them with a brush and putting fresh grease on everything and putting it all back together sparkly clean. That'd be real nice. Do that, you know, every few weeks to a month. Take, you know, 2 or 3 hours. Sit down in front of a movie with a few snacks and a powered screwdriver and just take this sucker apart. Wow, listen to that. Can you hear that? How smooth. It barely makes any noise at all. Axles are rotating like butter. I'm loving this kit. Just loving it. Okay, they send us on to shock absorbers and then linkages. Looks like we got a 3-link front and a 4-link rear. And then on to transmission. Just kind of looking ahead here. Drive shafts. And then after that, it's all exploded views and partsless. Okay. Bag C. There we go. And they have provided us with 35 weight shock fluid. Looks like we've got red and green springs. Let's see which one goes where. Do they tell us? I'm not familiar with Axial's spring colors, so I can't tell you which one is softer or harder. Okay, I need to go and get my shock stand. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.